was just gonna say. It looks like the one that Bob. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Council. Calling to order our meeting for September 13. I guess this would be our third last council meeting of this term, if all goes well, right? Unless there's another one meeting that does not happen, but so we'll start tonight's meeting with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agendas. All right. So going to our first order of business, approval of the agendas. We have consent agenda. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on that agenda? Councilor Dressler makes a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. A regular meeting agenda. I've heard of no additions or changes, so I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Councilor Wolstenholme makes a motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And for the good of council, does anyone have something they'd like to share with us for the good of council? Councilor Edwards.
I had the opportunity on Friday evening to attend the senior boys preseason volleyball tournament. And so it was really good to be back in the gym and have the kids playing sports and just sort of, it felt fairly normal even though we were wearing masks, but it was nice to see the kids play and having a good time and being able to be active again. So that was really awesome. And so I'm glad that the schools are allowing sports to continue because I think it's really important. So yeah, it was really awesome. FP Walsh was the second place finisher in that tournament, so they did really well.
Okay, preseason tournament then. Oh wow, that's pretty nice. All right, anyone else? Councilor Dressler.
Yeah, first I want to just acknowledge that we're on the Treaty 7 lands for the Blackfoot Confederacy. I actually got the honor and privilege to attend a bundle opening ceremony out on the Blood Reserve, which was done by Patrick Weesamoccasin.
Okay.
And so anyways, my family and I were invited to attend, and I've never attended one of these ceremonies, so it was quite a fulfilling adventure for myself to see this, because a lot of times it's not open to the public, but it was nice to attend. So I'm also looking very happy. I see that our youth groups in Fort Macleod are starting to start back up again. So there is a lot of programs that are out there that have been kind of sitting at the stalemate, but I think the Boy Scouts, YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, the cadets and everything else like that, they're going to be starting up within October, or unless things change, but looking forward to it.
All right, anything else? I did have a chance to go by the Foothill Center on the weekend as well, doing their little garage sale and bake sale. So thank you everyone that came out and supported that. That was appreciated. All right. If there is nothing else, we will move on to delegations for tonight. And tonight we have with us Sergeant Brian and Constable Ben with us. And so we'd invite them to be able to present the information they've prepared, and we'll be sure to ask any questions. The floor
Thank
is
you,
yours.
Mr. Mayor. Again, Sergeant Muha, with Constable Ben Stubby, who's acting as my corporal right now for the detachment. I'll go through my sort of State of the Union part here. As most of you may know, our regular complement of members at the detachment in Fort Macleod is 7 officers, 1 sergeant, 1 corporal, and 5 constables. This summer has been extremely busy with a lot of different things going on, both not fun and fun in the community. The 2 homicides, of course, really may cause some strain for us at the detachment, plus some other things. So, but we've been without Corporal Bedard here since May. It's a long-term thing for him that he's trying to work through. We have lost to Constable Banuski now. He's transferred up to Claresholm. He's been trying to transfer for about 7 or 8 years now, but he could never sell his house, and he still hasn't sold his house, so he's still living in town, but he's working out of Claresholm now. It's nice for him to get that change, because being in one place for 12 years sometimes can be a little bit offsetting, I guess. Constable Haystack was in Waterton for the summer to fulfill issues over there. The summer is now over. He's on a little bit of a holiday right now, and he'll be back next week. So, but he is also being transferred out, and for him, it'll be selling his residence in Lethbridge, which I don't think is going to be a long time for that. So, Constable Haystack will be moving on. This sort of reduction, so Constable Haystack and Banuski were actually STE for us, and when I say STE, it's surplus to establishment, so surplus to the 7 members we're supposed to have, they were extra, as well as Corporal Kaspersky, who had come from Coaldale for a few months to help us out. So when we had 3 extra people here, it was really, really nice. But we're losing that, and we're going back to our regular numbers. And this brings increased challenges, including officer resourcing, scheduling, workload, officer experience we're losing, especially with Hubert and Troy, and with supervision with Paul not being around, and Kevin Kaspersky going back to Coaldale. Our supervision is lacking. So it causes some challenges, but we will move forward and work through those as best we can. Moving on to the statistics. No, Brent, I won't go through this 7 pages of statistics. It's way too much. But I will let you know that our crime gauge, which is this document, and it kind of just highlights the major types of files that we have. Moving from January to August of 2020 to January to August of 2021, the statistics have all been on the decrease. Okay, so 2019 was a bad year for us. 2020 was also a bad year for us statistically, but it seems like it's starting to maybe level off. And I don't know if that's as a result of COVID or in any way directly related to COVID, but there are reasons, I guess. So persons crimes, 37% decrease. Property crime, 18% decrease. Other criminal code, 33% decrease. Break and enters, 43% decrease. So we really had a bad year last year. Theft of motor vehicles is 3%, so it's nominal. And then theft under 5,000, a 17% decrease. So this is all good in my mind. It doesn't mean we're out of the woods or that we can't stop doing what we're doing, but I guess that's the good news side of it. Current and ongoing issues, that really hasn't changed for our community. Our methamphetamine and opioid issues are through the roof, as always. Just on a personal work-related note, I had to use my naloxone spray on somebody the other day, and basically probably brought her back to life. So it's still happening, and yeah, it's really weird. I don't know how to get a handle on this. I know from my past experience, when I was working in Rocky Mountain House way back in the mid-90s to 2001, I went to some training seminar on meth, and it said, when meth comes to your town, you will know it. And I think now that meth has been in Fort Macleod for the last 4 or 5 years, we really see it. I'm sure of it. Because before that, we were worried about marijuana and cocaine, and yeah, cocaine's a bad drug too, but the marijuana side of it, I didn't see it as being a big issue, but it was. Anyway, to move on, the property crimes, again, theft, motor vehicle, theft under 5,000, mischief under 5,000 seem to be the biggest statistical issues that we're having. So we're going to continue to focus on those, the drug problem and the property crimes issues. Again, just to reiterate, crime prevention initiatives, we are trying to target crime hotspots and to really target crime events. So when we have that homicide or we have that theft or that B&E, we're really trying to be on top of that, to solve it first of all, but also to see what's going on as to why that's happening. Offender management is also a big priority for us. We get people coming back into our community from the court system, and the offender management program enables us to try and work with them or potentially working against them in order to do checks on them, curfew checks, alcohol checks, and those types of things, because if they're not abiding by the rules that are set out, then maybe they need to be going back into the court system. The PROS Data Center, of course, and the callback unit are sort of higher level initiatives that have come through to the detachments to try and alleviate us from sitting at computer desks all the time. Crime prevention through environmental design, that's an ongoing thing. Make sure people are securing their property. Every day, I just read files today, vehicles left unattended, keys in vehicles, unlocked, stuff left in vehicles. I shake my head, but we'll persevere, I guess. The natural surveillance, lighting, clear sight lines, video surveillance, territorial reinforcement, signage, deterrent, security signage, clearly visible, maintenance, repairing vandalized areas promptly, that sort of thing. If it's run down, people may end up thinking that they can go in there. We've had houses empty, and we know this, houses empty, and people have been squatting in those houses as recently as like a week ago. So, and then talk about our annual performance plan. COVID challenges for meeting and collaboration. Right? Our meetings and collaboration just hasn't been as effective. So that is a bit of a problem, but we're hopefully coming out of the woods here over the next maybe 4 to 6 months, and we can get moving further on our meetings and collaborations. The Safe Communities Task Force, I just want to say kudos to Sue while she was here working on that. She was very, very proactive in regards to that task force, and I think it's something that we maybe should continue here as we move forward. And that's in relation to the town of Fort Macleod, our office, SCAN, the bylaw, AHS, and Park Enterprises with Nicole there. So new reporting templates to ensure engagement with communities. That is something that Ben had sent out while I was on leave a couple of weeks ago. So I believe you've all seen that. It just kind of gives an updated reporting back to you to say this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do. It's just another way of communication. Town hall meetings, we have one coming up here in October, which is going to be, I believe, a joint online as well as in-person meeting. The in-person part was as a request from my higher-ups. I don't know if they're under a bunch of pressure because of the provincial policing and all these ideas that are going around, but they want every detachment out there doing one of these. So just that communication piece and collaboration is huge. And then I just want to say kudos to Wes and the bylaw enforcement. He's done a really good job, I think. Keep it up, and we will continue to work very closely with him every day that he needs assistance. And then, of course, our Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. We're meeting on Thursday this week. We'll try and continue to move ahead and do some things that maybe can help the community out. That's really it for my presentation. There's nothing really new other than we have a little bit of changing of the guard here with our members. We've got seniority going out, young members coming in. It does cause some challenges for us. So I'll put it back to Mayor and Council for any questions or thoughts.
Very good, thank you, Sergeant Bryan. Does anyone have any questions on the report? I know some of your comments were to carry on the task force. I believe that's our intent. We have no intention of trying to discontinue that. I know it's a bit of a challenge with Sue having left, but I believe our intent is to continue with that for sure.
Yeah, that's good. There's just, together as a group, there's too many things that we can do that I can't do alone or that the town can't do alone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's. Is there any other questions? It's good to see the numbers come down. Obviously, that's the right direction.
It's the right direction. I'm just not sure exactly what's causing it. If it's just a natural flow, natural progression. You know, you'd like to think that it has something to do with the work that we're doing, but I don't know. So
Yeah. And you made the comment about with methamphetamine, we will know it when it's in our community. Obviously, that's a struggle for us. And it's not something to discredit. I'm just curious how many of your colleagues around the area are struggling with similar challenges. Is it a growing concern regionally?
absolutely. When I was first in the organization 26 years ago, meth was creeping down Highway 16 corridor from British Columbia through Hinton and Edson into Drayton Valley and then into Edmonton. And it took a while, like years, for it to actually get here and onto the Nations and in Lethbridge. And as soon as that happened, it's here to stay and people can't get off of it. And with that comes all of the not working and unable to work and so what are you doing to maintain your habit? You're stealing, right? And so now everything that's not nailed down or bolted down in town is disappearing, and that's why we've had that influx or that high rate of property crimes over the past few years anyways. You know, when we had the cocaine and the marijuana, generally the cocaine you would sit at home and you'd be able to hide it, but meth is not a drug that you can hide, and neither is the fentanyl, especially when you're going to overdose on that stuff and near die. And that's why they're calling it a crisis, because people are dying and it's been, last 4 or 5 years.
So just on Constable Study here, just on Sergeant Muha's point, there's also seeing something new coming out, and it's a derivative of carfentanil and fentanyl, just as potent, but it comes in different forms. It's more of a police matter, but still also for the community to be aware of. And I don't have the name of it on the top of my head, but it's something, it's called like polyfentanyl or something like that. It's a derivative of fentanyl, and it's just as powerful, and it comes in a different form. And it came to me in an email, or to us, the detachment, and an email as an officer safety issue. So when we're handling that, to be on the lookout, we're very, very careful when we're handling fentanyl, carfentanil, and that kind of stuff. But we need to recognize as a community that, and police, that there are other deadly forms of fentanyl out there that are creeping in slowly as well. So we have to be very cognizant of the fact, if you find something out there and you don't know what it is, a powder or a solid or something that's just weird that you don't want, just please, don't touch it. Call us, call the RCMP, and we can dispose of it properly. So it's very, very, very deadly, just like fentanyl and carfentanil. So, and it's on one of my emails. So when I'm done talking here, I might be able to tell you exactly. So.
Is that being publicly communicated as well for people to be able to recognize it, or?
So it's very, very new, and they just found one. It was just found in a neighboring detachment for the first time here just last week. So it's something that's very, very new. It was developed in the 60s along with fentanyl. It's a synthetic opioid, and it's something that we haven't come across yet in southern Alberta. This is the first case of it, so it's very, very new. It's something that we will, through the RCMP, be communicating with the public, hopefully in short order, but it's something very new and still something that we're still trying to get a handle on. So.
Thank you. Great. Any other questions on the report presented? Great. Councillor Dressler?
As things kind of settle down, do we look at maybe doing another session for a public engagement on what to look for, and maybe also to what is out there and not to pick up and touch, especially with kids? They find something and it's something that to them might be not obvious, and they pick it up and then end up. And then I understand the public safety and the safety of the members themselves, especially when dealing or handling the stuff that it can be absorbed through the skin. So yeah, I would love to engage that we do maybe another Q&R or something like that, public engagement, if things do work out that we can.
Yeah, I agree. So I found the email. I agree. First of all, I think we should. I think it's since we've kind of the restrictions have been sort of relaxed in regards to public gatherings. I think now would be a good time to do that, sometime in the fall, possibly October, November. I think we should work on that together, Werner, just to get that off the ground. So, and that's something. This is something that I want to talk to them about. It's called parafluorofentanyl, and it's an opioid being and it's an analog of fentanyl. Basically, it's a derivative of fentanyl, and it's produced by Janssen Pharmaceutical in the 1960s. So, again, side effects of that is very similar to those of fentanyl itself, which include itching, nausea, and potentially serious respiratory depression, and possibly into coma and death. So I'll definitely talk about that more in a community environment, and then get it out to our citizens. Again, it's something that's very, very new in southern Alberta. We haven't seen it yet here in Fort Macleod, but if it's in a neighboring detachment, it means it's close by. So.
I think with our upcoming town hall meeting, it might be maybe good to take 10 minutes and have a little bit of a presentation on it. The town hall is on the 24th, like somewhere around there. October, just before, yeah. I can't remember the exact date, but it's in the middle of October. So, and it's one of those online YouTube live as well as in person, so people from the public can come as well, and that might be a good thing to present at that time.
That makes sense. All right. I think you had something else you wanted to present. Constable Stubby, did you want to do that now?
Yeah, sure. That'd be good.
Okay.
So, about a year and a half ago, not a little longer, probably close to 2 years ago now, the federal government introduced the concept of a body-worn camera for police officers within the RCMP, federal police officers, as well as contract policing members. In October of last year, so October 2020, a pilot project was commenced in Iqaluit, Nunavut. The pilot went very well. They first started with 4 body-worn cameras, one per shift per watch, and then expanded it to 2 and 4, and then finally the whole watch has them now. It went over very well. There's a 2-pronged approach to body-worn cameras. Number one is obviously community safety, but number 2 is also police safety and accountability. So both of those prongs are captured with a body-worn camera. We do have currently each police motor vehicle is equipped with a in-car camera with a mic. But again, if something goes off the camera or then that's not the scene's not captured this way. It's with the officer and it's comes on when the officer activates it for an emergency situation. So on that note, I'm just going to go over this little bit of a presentation on body-worn cameras. The Alberta RCMP remains committed to enhancing trust with the communities it serves. The body-worn cameras are one way to enhance trust by increasing transparency of police interactions with the citizens. We want to ensure all Albertans have the confidence that the justice system is there to protect them. As such, included in the community policing report package is an information package on body-worn cameras, which I'm going to go over. It'll be phased into operations over the latter stages of 2021. Basically, they're intended to capture an accurate, unbiased, and reliable audio-video account of incidents involving uniformed police, and they are increasingly deployed by police in Canada, but also internationally. We see a lot of that coming out of the United States. You can Google that. You can watch videos all day and all night if you like, because there's lots of that out there. So, and ultimately, it's to build trust between police, or continue the trust that's there, but also build it up with the citizens that the police serve. Other potential benefits would be a reduction in the number of public complaints. So if it's a body-worn cameras on, the member of the public makes a complaint, everything's video and audio recorded at that point, and then all we have to do is review the video and audio and then take action from there. Some increased uses of video evidence in court proceedings resulting in quicker resolution. Let me tell you, I've been in court many times in the past, and it's a very, very clear what happens, even with the camera, the main car camera. Example, I had an impaired, and it goes step by step through the video, and it shows exactly what I did, what the driver was doing, and subsequently what happened. So everything's right there, and it's very accessible to the court, and it makes testimony very quick. The RCMP is committed to enhancing trust with the communities it serves, and one way to increase trust is by increasing transparency of police interactions with the citizens. I must stress, though, body-worn cameras alone are not expected to change this behavior. It's one part of a comprehensive RCMP strategy to address systemic racism. So it's not just the body-worn cameras; it's the attitude of police officers and citizens alike. We have to work together. We all live in the same community, and police officers are no different than citizens in regards to accountability on both sides. So again, the objectives is improved evidence gathering and prosecutions, and improved transparency and accountability for police, leading to increased public trust, confidence in police, and then again, timely resolutions or withdrawal of complaints upon video viewing of the cameras. And finally, which is very important, is improved police and public behavior. One of the things that they noticed in the takeaways from Iqaluit, Nunavut, was that when the police officers, as soon as the police officers mentioned that they had body-worn cameras and everything was audio and video recorded right from their view, there was a lot more compliance with the citizens, and also the public complaints went down because they realized that whatever they said and did was going to be video and audio recorded, and then there was no recourse for anything else. It was not he said, she said anymore. So, body-worn cameras will become a national standard for RCMP members that are interacting directly with communities. So basically, the first rollout is going to be with operational members on the ground in uniform, day-to-day working with the community. That's going to be number one. And then as those get fulfilled, then they'll go to separate undercover units and that kind of thing, and officers that are working in a non-uniform capacity. There are some estimates about body-worn cameras will cost about $2,000 to $3,000 per camera per year. Accurate numbers will be confirmed once a vendor is in place, the federal government will fund the first 3 years of the rollout. So that's kind of on the cost side of things for council there. There's an expectation that body-worn cameras will start to be rolled out in the fall of 2021. That's coming up here, and an understanding that rollout could take up to 18 months. So again, we could see them into 2023 here or earlier. So, and again, once the vendor is selected, implementation will be phased in. Pilot projects in various settings are expected to assist in refining and adjusting procedures and training materials prior to broad implementation. Again, what happens in how things happen in Nunavut are different than Southern Alberta, obviously. And so once the body-worn cameras come into Alberta, they'll start with a quick pilot project, and then they'll start rolling them out from there. So, contract partners, i.e. Alberta, cannot opt out of the body-worn cameras. This is a national priority. This will be part of the RCMP standards. There'll be some flexibility, however, with respect to the unique and local requirements of the deployment of the body-worn cameras. And exact costs are not known at this point, but once we do, that will be provided financial forecasting to all the communities with municipal policing services agreements. That about sums it up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Seems like a worthy initiative. I was going to ask, Nunavut, they rolled it out. Did they see any savings in costs as a result of the cameras? Because based on the benefits, you would think there was some cost savings as well, right?
So just as an example right now, if there's a public complaint against an officer, the amount of man-hour or human hours or man-hours, or what do you call that, that are used in order to do a full and fair investigation is huge. So that is taking a supervisor off his normal duties, and that's investigating step by step, like policy and procedure dictates, that we must do a fair and comprehensive investigation in that complaint. So they found in Nunavut that body-worn cameras, basically, you took the body-worn camera, it was attached to the officer. Let's say there's an allegation of abuse of power, and they show this body-worn camera. It doesn't show any of that. Boom, the investigation's over, concluded, done. The officer is exonerated. So again, instead of being a 15-hour or 20-hour investigation, it now becomes a 2-hour investigation. So right there, cost savings are huge. Now that manager can go to do his other tasks that are slated for him or her, and move on. So that's hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, very good. All right, any other questions? Councilor Dressler?
So I think the biggest key thing too is a lot of times people don't really actually realize that body cameras and dash cameras have been around for quite a while now. Just technology has advanced a lot more, and I think it's a great tool and an asset to the members, especially when there are public complaints that tie up the system, especially when it's the supervisor or the detachment commander that's, has to do the investigation. So I'm hoping that the tools that are provided to you aren't becoming too cumbersome, but it's a great thing to have and protect the members and the public itself, right? So that there is no he said, she said, or vice versa. It's clear and defined. And being in that position, I understand the dash cameras. The minute you turn the lights on, there's audio, and you get people that turn around and they just blurt things out and really don't realize it. So I think it's a great tool, and I think it's a great asset, as long as it, like I said, doesn't become too tedious on the supervision when they have to go and review everything over and over and over. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've developed a system with the in-car cameras. This is going to be, it's actually not very cumbersome. It's actually quite easy to download and get it off the system, off the actual cars. And that'll be the same way. Once you dock the body-worn cameras at the end of your shift, it automatically transfers the data into a database, and you don't have access to it. It just gets dumped into there. and it's secure. So they're quite small. They're only about about 2 inches by 3 inches, so it's not that big. But they're high resolution. They capture a lot, and then basically they do have limitations. It's not the all end all be all. They, for example, when I'm doing stuff in front of me, it sometimes blocks it. It's not the end all be all. But that being said, I've been a police officer for almost 7 years, and I welcome it because it holds me to account, but it also holds the public to account for their actions, and you get to see what we actually do day to day, right? And how we deal with how we deal with sometimes violent people, right? So and how that can turn like that, but it's on both sides, right? It's a good tool for both sides. So, and again, ultimately, it's to build trust. So.
Oh, that's very good. If there's no other questions, then we want to thank you, Brian and Ben, for coming tonight. Wish you the very best, and administration will be in touch if we have any other questions. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we are carrying on then to public hearing that we have tonight for bylaw 1943, which is rezoning of industrial general to commercial general. And I believe we have Diane Horvath speaking to this on behalf of ORSC. If I could get you, Diane, to introduce the bylaw, then we will open the public hearing and go from there.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me okay. Again, this is the public hearing for bylaw 1943, which is to amend bylaw number 1882, being the municipal land use bylaw. Again, what's under consideration tonight is a rezoning of lots 31 to 34, block 365, plan 92B, all within the southwest of 12926, west of the 4th, within the town of Fort Macleod. The proposal is to change the zoning from industrial general IG to commercial general CG. The council gave first reading to this bylaw August 23rd, 2021. Advertisements for this public hearing were placed in the Gazette for September 1st and 8th as required by the Municipal Government Act. The reason for the rezoning is to accommodate commercial shops and businesses and to allow for dwellings as accessory to approved commercial uses and mixed-use buildings on those lots. At the time of the report, there was no comments from any adjacent landowners. So again, that's for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that said, I'd invite a motion from council to open the public hearing for bylaw 1943. Councillor Wolstenholme makes that motion. Call to question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So is anyone here wishing to speak to bylaw 1943 for or against? If anyone does. Once again, is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 1943? And last time, if there is no one here wishing to speak to bylaw 1943, we'll request a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 1943. Councillor Edwards makes a motion. Call to question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Under consideration of the public hearing we just had, rezoning of lands from industrial general to commercial general in bylaw 1943. Is anyone prepared to make motion for second reading of this bylaw? Councillor Orr makes that motion. Does anyone have any questions regarding this bylaw? I think we asked at first reading if there was any concerns with this from a planner's perspective, and also whether the whole block would be potentially rezoned instead of just the 3 or 4 lots. But because to have commercial general and then 2 more industrial general and then across the street is residential, but that's something we could address in further bylaws as well.
I believe Mr. Scott did mention that to me prior to him leaving on holidays. He did indicate that there was definitely opportunities for additional consultation with council. But again, I believe it was what this landowner was looking for. So that's why it was limited to just looking at that particular request.
Very good. All right, if there's no further discussion, the motion's on the floor. We'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And entertaining a motion for third reading of this bylaw. Councillor Edwards makes the motion. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Right. Thank you, Diane. All right, moving on to new business, ATCO Gas and Pipelines, our franchise fee. Our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, would like to speak graciously to this one.
Good evening, Council. It is our annual look at our franchise fee for the gas distribution franchise with ATCO Gas. As I put in my presentation, we haven't had an increase in our franchise fee for our gas distribution system since I've been here, and that was 2015. The current franchise fee rate is 12.5%, and in our agreement with ATCO Gas, there is a cap for this rate of 35%. So we're nowhere near the top of what we could charge, but as I remind council, this is a flow through. So whatever we set the rate at flows through to the utility customer's bill, and is that's how it's collected, is from our residents. So my recommendation tonight is to leave it at 12.5%. Even with no increase to the rate, there will be proposed increase in the revenue because of growth. So my recommendation is to leave the rate as is. There will still be growth, and we will budget for that proposed revenue in our 2022 operating budget. And another reason why I don't recommend an increase right now is that we just increased our water and sewer. We did some adjusting for our water and sewer rates, so I think that might be enough for 2021 for now for the residents. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Councillor Wolstenholme?
I'm just curious, is it similar rates that other towns around us? Do you know?
We are close to other towns, between 12-15%. That's pretty well what other communities are billing for franchise fees, unless you live in Nobleford, which charges nothing as usual.
Okay. Is anyone prepared to make a motion based on the recommendation? Councillor Dressler?
So move, please.
As per the recommendation,
As per the recommendation.
leave it at 12.5%. Any further discussion? Councillor Orr?
Not that I'm opposed to the recommendation, I remember a conversation that we've had around this, and I believe it was Councillor Monteith at one point had raised the fact that this is lots of times for rental properties, residential rental properties, that utilities are covered by the renter. And obviously our property taxes, that always goes to the owner who is responsible for that. And so it is a little bit of a different form of revenue generation that comes from perhaps at least to a percentage from a different ratepayer, and that's a consideration as to whether or not we want to look to try to find some balance there. I don't disagree with the other things that you said we should take into consideration, but this is one of those forms of revenue where we may take into account the fact that it is speaking to perhaps another type of customer. So I raise that simply so that we all remember that, as we probably already do without me having said so. But yeah, I'm prepared to vote in favor of the recommendation as presented.
Okay, any other discussion? So I think in the future, this would be something that either the finance committee or council would have to take in consideration with the whole budget planning, correct? And to make
Yes.
sure that
Exactly,
it's not a one.
needs to find a balance in all of those forms of revenue generation.
Okay, very good. Motions on the floor. If there's no more discussion, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. And moving on to year-to-date financials, our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, would like to speak to these, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mayor Fader.
Line by
So
line.
I just wanted you guys, because elections are coming up, and I wanted you to get one more look at the financials before you have to do an
I
election.
can't help but express my deep appreciation and thanks for that.
There, that's right. David won't have to look at these again, thank goodness, eh? So I just did up some financials. There's really not a ton that I wanted to highlight for council. It's business as usual. I guess one thing that I wanted to mention was that at our organizational meeting, the new council's first organizational meeting, we will be asking for a standing committee for finance. And it would be full council. And then we would have an opportunity to go through these in depth at the committee level, and probably do quite a bit more in-depth work with full council to get everybody comfortable with what these financial statements are saying. And when I think it's probably easier to ask questions when you're in a committee setting versus in the public with the cameras on. So it would be a little more informal and a lot more work, because I'm going to make you learn this stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll have some opportunities in the future to really dig into the numbers, and get quite comfortable with what our budgets are and where they come from and where we're going. The only thing I really wanted to talk about in the financial statement for tonight is that when we get together at our finance committee meeting, administration will be presenting kind of how we've done with our utility revenue changes, our rate changes for water and sewer, and our forecast for 2022. So Adrian and I and staff will be working on that for council for that first finance committee meeting. So we're quite interested to see what's been happening and where we're going from here. But other than that, it's day to day, not very much. But I'll answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? No questions. So I think it's the same question. If someone sees the year-to-date actuals and they say, we have $2.6 million in the surplus. Your note on the bottom explains that to some degree. So a lot of it's going to be distributed to amortization, debenture payments, and other expenses. And the year's not yet complete, of course. So those will all get taken care of at year end.
Yes, and I will be coming to council at the end of, what's this month? Gosh, September. So the September 27th meeting, we'll be doing some initial reserve transfers before this council's term is up, so we can do some adjusting that needs to be done before the year end.
Very good. All right, any other discussion? If not, a motion to accept as information. Councillor Edwards makes a motion. Is there any other questions? Councillor Ward, no? Everyone's good? All right, just making sure. All right, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, on to administrative reports, of which we have 3 plus the motion list. I'm not sure how administration wants to go through these. I know I enjoyed reading through them all. Definitely good highlights in all of them. So I suppose we do as last time, just highlight a few items that you like. We'll start with Adrian, our Director of Operations.
Good evening, Council. So, as usual, I'll kind of pick one from each section here. It's always hard on my end because there's a lot of good work going on. But from a public works perspective, decided to highlight the fire hall preemptive light. So that one was a long time coming. A lot of coordination from our end, the province, Fortis, and our fire team there. So that's finally complete. There is a little bit more programming that needs to happen on it, but it is up and operational at this point. So happy to see that done. Within the plants, I think it's important to note the lead mitigation program. So our sampling is pretty much complete at this point. We did conduct additional samples in September here, so I'm happy to report that there really isn't a huge lead issue in town based on our sampling. We'll be going under kind of the next phase of that reporting process, and then should AEP have any other requirements from us, then we'll pursue that. Okay. Under parks and facilities, I'm sure many residents and perhaps council has already seen the dog park, so that's kind of well underway. Tice has been working pretty hard at that, and we've had some work from Public Works as well, pitching in there. So that's moving right along. So that's an exciting thing for the town and for our guys, and for Lisa, I'm sure. In planning and development, quite a bit going on here. I would kind of highlight all of the land sales and swaps in various stages of completion. A lot of back-end work goes into these, both from the administrative perspective as well as from our legal team, and then coordinating all these deals with landowners. But they're all well underway, and we work pretty much on a daily basis on some of these initiatives. So, and major projects. So I guess I'd like to highlight all the projects going on in the south side of town. They're pretty visible. A lot of new infrastructure getting installed, new curbs, new sidewalks, new asphalt. So it's pretty exciting, and so far so good on most of them. We've run into some utility issues in the Southwest Industrial, but kind of to be expected. But we're working through those, and everything should be on schedule. And miscellaneous. This is where I throw all the other stuff. Garbage and recycling. So this has kind of been my baby for the last few months. Excited to present that to council on the September 21st committee of the whole meeting. So we'll have a good discussion there. I think there's some pretty promising options for the town moving forward. So hopefully we get a resolution to that fairly soon.
Very good. Any questions for Adrian? Councillor Ward?
Adrian, I had a question about the slide at the pool. I know at one point we were hoping that the actual slide would be delivered about this time and might get installed this fall yet. What is that looking like?
Good question. That's been affected by material shortage issues. Unfortunately, we're experiencing that basically on any project that we do. At this point, we're leaning towards October. So it's currently in production in mid-October, tentative installation date. So it should still go in this year.
Yeah, I appreciate that the supply chain, there's issues with that. Is the installation of that dependent upon weather? Or I would think not so much. Obviously, you wouldn't start it up if it's freezing, but as far as installation, is that a factor that it would need to be installed before we get to freezing temperatures?
You wouldn't want to install it sub-zero.
Yeah.
So for kind of around that 0+ mark, we're okay. The benefit there is that we've done all the concrete work already.
Right.
So had we needed to do concrete work, then for sure that would have to be postponed. But at this point, it's just going to be putting in all of our columns, our structure, the slide itself. So we should be able to get away with it in relatively cold temperatures.
Good, thanks.
I had a quick question on land sales. Have you had more interest on lots, whether residential or industrial, based on pre-advertising or pre-selling?
Good question. We were just talking about this today. Pretty much the same people. I don't think we've received any new inquiries for the last, few weeks. And we haven't really sold any officially that I'm aware of, so.
Okay. Is it worth doing some more advertising, or, because I know we did quite a bit of advertising about 2 months ago, I think, right?
Yep.
I was just curious if there's ongoing marketing or.
Carmen is working on some additional 9th Street ads for the radio, as well as once the Santa Claus Parade banner goes up on the Tim Hortons billboard there, we'll be rotating the 9th Street one and the diversity and inclusion one for one more round. And then that 9th Street one will stay up a little bit longer.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions on Mr. Pedro's report? All right, thank you, Adrian. That was very good. Moving on then to Director of Finance, Chris Olbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. So I had to beef mine up. Sue said, no bullet points, Chris. Put some meat into your report. So I tried to make it interesting still. So I'm just going to do like Adrian did and highlight one thing I want to talk about from each of the big categories. So taxation, I went through all the new construction this year. Kelly Sanford and I, the development officer, went through all of her permits, and we came up with a list of people who potentially are eligible for the 2022 start to the business incentive tax. So I sent them out reminder letters and an application and my card. So I'm hopeful that we will get a good response from that little push, because there was probably 6 or 7 businesses that haven't applied yet, and they are potentially eligible. They are, some of them are eligible, and I know they are, but I can't go write the application for them. So I'm really hoping that they will get on board, because the deadline is October 1st. Under utilities, front-end staff were quite excited for the bulk water station to get up and running. Adrian promises me it's going to be this year. So I've promised my staff it's going to be this year, and all our customers it's going to be this year. So it's going to be this year. I know. He doesn't stand a chance, because I just walk down the hall and, yeah, keep poking him. So I don't really want to talk about anything on the second page, but on the third page, just a big reminder that 2021 municipal elections are coming up in October. I know, it's an exciting time. And then just all the dates are there, and just so everyone realizes, and I've talked to the local press about this, and Miranda and I are doing a lot of advertising on social media, we changed the venues, or the venue, from the gym here to the community center for, so there's more space. If we can get people to come in one door and go out the other door, it's better for all of us. So we're just trying to, we got a big community hall, and we're going to use it for the advanced voting and for election day. And then the only other thing I wanted to chat about was Laserfish, which is a RICO program, Laserfish for Cloud. Miranda and I are tag teaming on it. I don't think this council will be involved in the rollout of the Laserfish for council agendas, but the new council will. We're quite excited. It's part of our red tape reduction. It's going to be quite something. We're really excited. Claresholm uses the Laserfish software for digitizing and streamlining work processes, and the staff and the public's ability to search metadata and strip it off bylaws and minutes forever. So it's very exciting, and we're starting with council agendas. So the new council will be trained on Laserfish. It's dead simple. Miranda and I it's dead simple, and it's going to be better than Dropbox. So we're kind of excited to get that process started and get some low-hanging fruit wins, and then off we go to digitize the town of Fort Macleod.
That sounds great. Thank you. Questions for Solbeck? Councillor Dressler?
Is this the future of the old style microfiche?
No, see, I'm of the generation where I remember microfiche. Yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Okay. Any further questions on our director's report? If none, then we will pass it over to our interim CAO and Director of Community and Protective Services, Lisa.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight just a little bit more about the dog park and just assure our residents that trees that were at the old bike park were actually relocated from that location to the dog park, and they all seem to be thriving relatively well, despite being transplanted in, I think it was plus 34 heat. So they've had some temporary water bags put on them, and those will continue for a little bit, but they do seem to be doing good. And the fence is up, and so you can actually see the footprint of what that park is going to eventually look like. We won't be opening it this year, even though it looks like it should be ready to go. There's some grading and additional landscaping work that needs to happen, but we will be looking at hopefully getting it spring, early summer of next year. So that's good. FCSS, I wanted to just highlight FCSS again, because we can't talk about them enough. They're wonderful. Their summer program was awesome, and through their program, they had 4,173 people participated in their summer program with several volunteer opportunities. And our community is just so lucky to have that summer program, and especially when we're in COVID times and you can't do much, they were still able to do some pretty awesome events for our community. The library as well has really upped their game in the last couple of years in the program, and the displays and everything that get brought to that, and the Tex art exhibit was seen by 2,300 people plus in that 4 to 5 weeks. So we get a lot of kudos given to us and handed to us for our library and the programming and just the staff that are in there. So I just wanted to pass those kudos on to them. And yeah, I'll take any questions if you'd like.
Any questions? Comments? So if the fence is up on the dog park, what prevents someone from using it? Oh, sorry. Just kidding, because that's kind of the whole
You're right,
main goal,
the fence
right?
is up there, but we're hoping that people don't enter the area because it does still need some landscaping. There are some holes and some grading areas that do really need to be taken care of before people enter the park.
And there's like big traps and stuff.
No traps, but there are probably still lots of gophers running around though.
Okay, well, that sounds very good. Any other questions? If there's none, then we'll enter. You want to go through the motion list first? I think this list is very helpful. I went through it, and it's good to see how much has been done and is in progress. Is there any questions on the motion list? No. If there's no further questions, is anyone prepared to make a motion to accept the 4 reports as presented? Councillor Dressler makes a motion. No further discussion. We'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, and being it's our first meeting of the month, does anyone have a committee report they would like to speak to? Yeah, there's been a couple maybe, but not a whole lot. Okay, Councillor Dressler, you had some?
Yes, Your Worship and fellow council members, as Sergeant Brian Muha and Acting Corporal Ben Stubb had said, our Crime Prevention Committee will be meeting this Thursday at 12 o'clock. Again, this is open to anybody within the community that would like to participate in helping with crime reduction. So I know Acting CO Lisa Gillingham and myself were both on that. So we look forward to anybody from the public that would like to put input. So it's always good to have somebody with a new face on there. Also with AAPG, they have a conference which I did not submit for asking for remuneration, but it is a conference on policing between our communities and First Nations. It's more of a Q&A and just information, which I thought was really good. One of the other things that was brought up, and I'm not sure where this was and whether or not Acting CO Lisa Gillingham was aware of this. There was an email sent out from AAPG for nominations. Sorry, give me 1 second to bring this up from the executive director. So they're looking for nominations to the Alert CAC Civilian Advisory Committee. This is a whole new thing that's been brought out, and as I'm aware, we are going into a municipal election. Whether or not that the town would actually put a nomination for somebody from council or currently or from staff for that position, because this is actually new. It's an advisory role as part of the committee. I can email this out to everybody to review, but if there's interest, please let me know, but I will email this to everybody.
All right, any other committee reports?
Maybe I would just like to highlight, and Adrian can maybe provide further details, but we do have scheduled for the 16th of September an open house with the Built Heritage Advisory Board, where they'll be presenting another slew of statements of significance on a number of the historical buildings within the town. That's at the community hall. Do we have a time? I know we do. What's the time of that?
It's scheduled from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Right. We had done one of these before with our first, with a number of statements of significance. It was well attended, and we hope that we'll have good attendance at this one so that they can see and learn more about the history of our community and the assets that remain and are still of great interest to us.
Very good. Any other committee reports? If there is none, I believe that concludes our agenda for tonight, and our meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening.